It is better to think of church in the alehouse than to think of the alehouse in church.
We'll just keep going. We'll see if AI can boost you up.
Yeah. So the crowbar, he would just drink a shit ton of whatever it was. So he'd be like, all right, tonight we're drinking Four Locos. I'm going to drink a shit ton of them, and then I'll let you know how it is later. And then he'd drink the first one and be like, oh man, this is awful. But I'm going to finish off a bunch of these and I'll let you know how it goes at the end of the night. And then it'd show him at the end of the night absolutely plastered every single time, no matter what he was drinking. And he's just like, I rated it a 4 out of 10. Like it's not actually not 1 out of 10. It's not good. It's not good. Oh, dude, I don't feel good. Like it's just total drunk guy, just like rating something. It was hilarious. And he'd go and he'd destroy it. He called it the crowbar. And it was just like it was made out of pallets. So it's just like a pallet, and then like a wooden thing, like a wooden post over the top that said crowbar painted on it. And then a pallet was used as the bar in front. So there's 3 pallets, and then like he used 2x4, 2x4, and a 2x4 across the top. And it's so funny. And he'd destroy it every single time he got drunk. And he rebuilt it again for every video. And it's funny. I also watched that guy drink. He's like, now I'm going to try disgusting shots that shouldn't be ever made. And this one's called the tapeworm. I saw him drink that, and that was seriously the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. And if you don't know what a tapeworm shot is, I believe it's tequila. I think it's tequila. You get tequila, and then you squirt mayonnaise in it. And mayonnaise makes it look like there's a worm, like, because it doesn't separate. So you squirt it in, and it's all just like this little like snake that's sitting at the bottom of your shot glass, and it's disgusting. I was like, no way. Yeah. So anyways, that guy makes fun of IPAs on a regular basis on TikTok. And I think that they're really funny. And if other people view us that way, that's okay. It goes both ways as long as you're able to take your drinking piss or water or whatever for drinking light beers, and you want to talk about us drinking wood chips and pine needles and saying that we like it, but there's no way that anybody could actually like it. That's okay. You can say that. The jokes are always that we're lying to ourselves, that we're just like, oh, we're pretentious, and so we just drink this and just don't enjoy it. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, that's fine.
Well,
that's what kids say about people drinking coffee, by the way.
What?
I said that's what children say about adults that drink coffee.
We had first minute, we had a little recording problem. So just in case I can't fix it, our first beer is Evil Twin Brewing Company out of New York City. It is the Is It Too Early to Get Spring Fever IPA, and it's a traditional East Coast IPA, so it's hazy and juicy, and it's pretty good.
It's got a lot of sediment.
It does, which is probably by design, but
this says it was canned.
I don't like about
canned in November 2026. So it was canned 5 months from now. So, or 9 months from now. So there you go. 8 months. 7. There we go. 7. Does yours say 11/26 on it? That's what mine says.
Mine says 11/23/36.
I'm sure it's just like a can number. I don't know what it has to do with anything. Mine technically says 11/26/53. So,
or was the time? But I don't know why you wouldn't put the date. Thought I saw in here the date, and it was like February. But
anyways,
whatever.
It's got a lot of sediment, but it's good.
Nolan went someplace over the weekend, and somewhere in Visalia, and they ordered Irish car bombs, and the bartender made them. He dropped it in before he served them, so he started dropping them in, and Nolan goes, "Whoa! Don't drop that in there. Do not drop that in there." And the guy's like, "I'm supposed to," and he goes, "Don't do that." And he kind of gave him a look like, by the time you serve that, it's all curdled. So the other 3 people like drank theirs, I think the bartender was like, that's how we're supposed to make it or something. And so he's like, oh, I'm not ordering those here ever again. That's gross. That's so gross.
I don't know. I don't drink Irish car bombs, so out of respect, for that nation. Somebody was making jokes about it on. There's a comedian that was talking about how he's like, isn't it wild? It's like responsible for killing like hundreds of people in Ireland. Or just now it's just a drink in America. Like, well, yeah, you know.
Well, you say that. The thing of it is, though.
Well, I was just saying that's what the comedian says. So.
Well, it's a funny line, but just being serious for a second, it's probably a drink that the IRA created to raise money in bars in the United States, which is what they would do.
I don't know.
Would come over here and raise a lot of money from Irish expats who wanted to knife it to the Brits, and so it might have been something Irishmen
maybe
invented in order to sell drinks and get Americans drunk and hand over their dollar bills. I don't know.
Maybe. I can tell you that I've asked a few Irish people, and I know people that have asked a few Irish people, and I can tell you they are not a big fan of that drink. We once asked a guy for we went to an Irish pub and we asked him about an Irish car bomb, and he decided to set up shot glasses and say, here's a fucking Tin Towers, and fucking knocked it over because he was pissed off about it. We were like, oh, well, all right, got it. You don't like that. So,
according to, what's Google's AI? Genesis,
Gemini.
whatever. Gemini. Irish car bomb cocktail was invented in 1979 by American bartender Charles Burke Cronin Oat. Wow, 4 names. Charles Burke Cronin Oat at Wilson Saloon in Norwich, Connecticut. Originally termed the IRA before morphing into the current name, it consists of a shot of Irish cream and whiskey dropped into stout, referencing car bombings during the Troubles.
It's actually just a...
So there you go.
Yeah, it's actually the Brits that came up with the drink. They're just fucked up even more. Anyways, so there you go. Anything else going on besides fucked up FIFA?
Oh, World Cup, yeah. European sports bodies are the worst to deal with. It's everything Orwell wrote about in 1984. It's circuitous bureaucracy and overly complicated, and websites that seemed they were developed in 1997. So I've been slowly trudging along trying to get credentials for this summer, and for a while there I was like, I threw my hands up. I'm like, this just might not happen, and I'm not gonna like get my blood pressure up for over it. It's just whatever it is. I mean, we'll lose money, but also just like whatever, we'll just cover other things. And then slowly started chipping away, and then over the weekend, yesterday, we're almost there. We've applied for actual games.
Nice.
You had to get a control key, and the person applying could then use the control key to get access to the system. Then when you're in the system, you get to tell the system what cities you want to shoot, and you can shoot to up to 3 cities.
Only?
Well, no, a specific photographer can only cover 3 cities.
Gotcha.
And then once they say yes, then you get to Olympics works the same way, unless you're like Getty and AP, which they can cover everything. Most places you get a credential, so theoretically you have access. Like, okay, you're here, but then you have to it's somehow weighted, and nobody knows what's weighted. So like, I don't know where my photo agency is compared to everybody else who's going to be covering World Cup. What I do know is it'll be the USA Soccer that'll be doing it. It won't be FIFA. That's an upside because we cover any U.S. soccer event that happens in the States, we cover, and then some even overseas. But we've been faithfully covering USA Soccer for 2 decades, so they know us. But anyway, so you apply for the games you want, and then it just comes down to, well, yes, we had enough. There's enough room for you to shoot the game. So even then, I can't say I can say I know we applied for these 56 matches. How many matches?
I wonder how.
But I don't know how many of those are actually going to get blessed as we get up to the games, and that's 70 days away.
I'm curious how they're going to structure you guys at SoFi, because they're already having to remove seats that lower level all the way up to the balls.
Well, this is the tricky part. They ask you what kind of credential you want. And there's 2 credentials. There's a sideline photo. Preferably, I'd like a sideline photo. There's another one that they call photo. Such a bizarre. It's photo. I can't remember it. So I had to look it up. I had to look it up in the system. Like, what is this? And basically, you have a seat in the stands around midfield, and so you can't move.
Yeah.
Can't really move in most soccer matches anyway. You're pretty much there's rarely any room. Like if you're in a corner at most soccer matches, that you're just kind of there, like, because the runner boards all kind of go like soccer pitches aren't like football fields where you've got 10, 15 yards of space on the other side. They pretty much, like I said, they'll give you 5 yards.
It's like basketball.
Yeah, they'll give you 5 yards so that the players, have a little bit of runoff space. If they do those foamy plastic runner advertisements, they'll have room. They want to have room for that. It's probably be all digital anyway. So, but they don't let you choose both, because I would if it's one of those things where if you deny me and it's like, well, we didn't have enough room on the sideline. Well, then tell me that there's room to shoot in the photo thingamajigger, and I'll take that. I just want to cover the match. So,
yeah, it's annoying.
And all of our guys that applied after it's kind of like when we shoot the Super Bowl. We get an elevate, same thing there. You can shoot on the field, but you're not really locked in, but they're crowded, so it's hard to move around. Or you get an elevated spot that's either fixed or you can move. And we always get one fixed, one move for the Super Bowl. And generally that works it out for us, because if you're gonna be on the field, you want 4 people to shoot a football game that big. Like if it's a national championship game or a Super Bowl, you want 4 people. You want a photographer in each corner, so you're always near the ball, and even then people are moving. It's a whole orchestrated thing when we cover these things. But if you only have 1 or 2, it's better to be up there like in that one spot at the 50-yard line, because if I've got a big lens, I can cover the whole field.
Yep.
And my angle's not necessarily what I want. It's not going to create amazing pictures because I'm not on the field and at eye level. But I should be able to get all the plays.
Right.
I should just be following the ball, kick, score. It's one of those if I'd thought about it more, I should have just said, no, everybody take the 50-yard line thing, because we're going to get we have 2 people that we've got at most of the venues. And I bet we'll get 1, which is going to be a whole mess for me, because I'm going to have to tell people no, and we're not covering all the venues. We're not covering Vancouver. And I think we're covering Toronto, but I think there's 3 in Canada. I don't remember what the third one is. It's Hamilton, or maybe there's just the 2.
I think it's just the 2.
And then we're not covering any of the Mexico venues.
I think there's only 1 in Mexico, right?
No, I think there's 3.
Is there?
There's more than 1.
I thought it was just Mexico City.
Mm-mm.
I know the United States has everything, but
all of our matches are on the West Coast. They're LA, Bay Area, or Seattle.
Yeah. Wait. Well, no, there's some in Kansas. There's Kansas hosting Atlanta.
No, sorry. I thought you were talking about Team USA.
No, Team USA is playing 3 games. I thought it's Los Angeles, or it's Los Angeles, Seattle, Los Angeles. No, are they playing?
Yeah, that might be right.
Okay, yeah, I think it's SoFi.
Yeah, all the venues are.
It's SoFi, Lumen Field, SoFi.
It's those 3 on the West Coast: Kansas City, Houston. I'm surprised Chicago didn't get 1. Atlanta. I'm not surprised by Atlanta. It's quietly a good soccer town, and they got a nice stadium.
But they want the big stadiums, and the Bears stadium wouldn't work for the soccer. I don't know. It doesn't even work for the fucking Bears, so I just assumed it wouldn't work for the. They're not going to toss every Myers stadium.
And then, where are they playing for the? Are they playing at? Oh, they're playing at Hard Rock in Miami.
Yeah. That's where they've had the championships for like all the other like CONCACAF or whatever has been there.
Oh, and then we have
MetLife.
Philly, and then New York, New Jersey, and Boston.
Yeah.
And the semifinals are at Philly and Miami, I think, and then the finals are at
Did Minnesota get one or no?
Nope.
They got a pretty good soccer following in Minnesota right now, but I mean,
and then
if Portland had
we're really getting granular here. Like we're losing people. We've lost. We're from 100 to like 10 listeners. You know, there's a fast forward button. But and then I don't understand why they have this. They're trying to act like they're holier than thou. Well, I know why it is. It's not that. It's commercial contamination. The stadiums that are all branded in the United States can't use it during the World Cup. So I don't know what they're going to do for the sign. I don't know if they'll probably just cover them up. So SoFi is not. It's Los Angeles Stadium. Hard Rock is not. It's Miami or South Florida Stadium. MetLife is New York, New Jersey. Lincoln Financial's Philadelphia. So all those. So that'll be interesting. So anyway, got that all squared away, and hockey ends in 2 days, and we hit the playoffs. So I'll be scrambling on Friday morning to confirm credentials for the start of the playoff, and then
I don't know who I'm rooting for.
And then spring football has started, which didn't used to be a big deal, but I think we're covering 20 spring games, focusing on the ones with new teams and new coaches.
For college?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's easy money, man. I mean, you go out there and shoot.
Tickets are cheap for
James Franklin in spring training, and you make money all summer long when you're leading up. Like, you'll get pictures in the preview magazines, and it's something you got to do.
Oregon games.
And then on top of it, now I've got, I'm researching each team we're covering to see what big transfers are coming in. So, which in the case of Virginia Tech was like 6 Penn State players, including quarterback. So anyway, now we're sports talk.
Well, it's actually your job talk.
So yeah, going well. How about you?
I'm okay. We do have a lot of local listeners, so I was in lockdown last week.
Oh wow. It's becoming a regular occurrence.
Yeah, once a year.
Was it because of the sheriff? Oh dear.
It was 2 blocks away.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Guy was using a high-powered sniper rifle.
Oh yeah, that's why they.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we were in lockdown for several hours because the standoff started at 11 a.m. and it didn't get over till like 5 p.m. And he shot the sheriff like to start the day. So like that was like at 11:30 he shot the deputy sheriff, and then housed up, and they were in a standoff. Eventually, SWAT team came through and ran him over with the SWAT car.
They ran him over with a tank.
Yeah. So
which I'm being specific. I'm not decrying. I mean, it makes you feel a little icky, but also considering the context of what had happened earlier in the day, when you could put that in, like if you read
the interview
I didn't agree with that. He's a little too Trumpy on that. Like we can say we had to run the guy over with basically an armored personnel carrier, but we don't have to gloat about it in the press conference.
I didn't see him gloat. I just heard him say, "Don't shoot at cops." I only saw the snippet where he was like, "Don't shoot at cops. You shoot at cops, you're gonna get ran over. Don't shoot at cops."
Yeah, it was a little gloaty there, but he's a bit of a dick. But whatever.
I don't know him.
But yeah, I mean, if you just read, like, I'm sure there's plenty of people around the country where it somehow got reported, and they're like, "Oh my God, they just killed a guy by running over with." Yeah, well, read all the stuff that happened the previous 5-6 hours. So the guy was, at that point it was suicide by cop. So I don't think the guy really cared what method it was.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And like I said, it happened early in the day. So it was like, so we were we had to eventually get evacuated at 4:00. So school day ended and we had to get everybody evacuated. Buses weren't allowed to run. So kids had to be picked up by their parents. And yeah, that was it. It was a fun day. Kids had to pee in buckets.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We were in lockdown protocol. Yeah. So there you go. For those of you that don't understand how a lockdown affects the school, there you go. Kids aren't allowed to leave the classroom for anything, not even a restroom break. And so some kids peed in buckets. Not in my class. So I didn't have to take care of a pee bucket at the end.
I understand the policy, but I think we need some smart people to reimagine how there might be better ways to handle these situations or not have a one-size-fits-all approach.
I don't know. The hard part is we work with the police force on our protocol that we use. And there are good things about that. And then there are things like this.
Well, okay. So to shoot down what I just said, even if the school had, let's say, 3 different options for lockdown, the cops probably would have said, nope, just stay there because we don't have the resources to
and
protect
we do have 3.
you.
By the way, we do have 3 different types of lockdowns.
So that was just like, no, because we don't want to worry about that. We got traffic control to worry about, this thing to worry about.
Yeah, so like, okay, so for example, we do have 3 different types of lockdowns, which is important to note. So we have the first one that we got hit with, which is for about an hour, and this is when kids had to pee in buckets, was we all had to be on the floor and out of sight. That's would be our like code black or whatever. Because again, we know that somebody is causing harm either in the vicinity of the school or inside the school or whatever. So it's like get indoors, get out of sight, get down, that kind of stuff. And because the hard part is on this particular instance, as opposed to the threat not being on campus, makes it to where we're not communicating with police. Police are communicating with us about that. So things are going to take longer to know when we are safe or more likely to be out of code black because they have other things to occupy their time at the moment than to just be like, oh yeah, release the kids to move about the cabin as they wish or whatever. So we get done with code black. And then after about an hour, and then we go into what is like the hold, and that would be like your code red. So it's like, okay, you're not allowed to leave class without an escort. So everybody has to stay within the building, but then campus security can come and like send escorts, or teachers can come and supervise restroom usage and all that kind of stuff. And that is allowed to happen. And then you have like secure, which is just like, all right, like we have like an ambulance that comes on campus and we need everybody out of the way. So that means that like, all right, get inside of the building and just like secure there. I don't know. So that's like our code yellow kind of thing. So those are your 3 different lockdowns. So there you go.
Well, so there you have it. There's no way around that. It's just,
yeah. Well, and the kids
it was a very typical response for me. Like, we need to do this better. Like, you know what? There's going to be hardship sometimes. So kids have to just sit in a room for hours and deal with because some dipshit decided to go.
And kids and parents are awful when it comes to this stuff. Teachers are bad too, by the way. Like, you should see all the complaints that are going on in the chat that we're using for communicating emergency protocol. It's awful. But at the same time, students are no good because they're just like, get us out of here. I mean, it's like, okay, you live on the street where this shooter is, like, you know, but they don't know where this guy is. So they're just like, I'm gonna go jump the fence and like go home. And then it's like, oh yeah, this is actually where this guy is. And then it's like, okay, so yeah, so they don't understand. Like last year when we had the stabbing, they're just like, why didn't they cancel school for the rest of the day? And I'm like, okay, because why don't they cancel school for the rest of the day? Because the amount of transportation issues that you would cause, like, do you know how many kids are relied upon for school transportation just to get home? Like, I was like, we bus in kids from Woodville. Like, that's 20 miles away, or from Terabella. Like, I was like, in order enough to get those buses in here, get them out and that kind of stuff, it's actually just better logistically for us to just go about our day and your parents come pick you up if they feel like it's not a safe environment than for it to be like, all right, everybody just go home. We're canceling everything. Like, stay put or whatever. Like, again, as much as this is a traumatic thing that's happened on campus, there almost has to be like kind of like this moving forward with your day kind of thing that has to continue to go on afterwards, because or like, you know, or the buses can't come and pick him up because the buses are doing other routes. You have to call in bus drivers in order enough to make that emergency action happen. That doesn't mean that they're available or whatever. And then you have like situations where, like, again, the person's in Woodville. Mom works from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. She's not able to pick up her kid. So there's a kid that's on campus that therefore has to be supervised or whatever. But like, again, parents don't think that way, like about a school day and its logistics and the things that there are 10 trillion things that go on in a school day that rely everything to go smoothly. And as soon as you like, you just go, just screw it. It doesn't exactly work that way. That's actually could cause bigger issues if you do that. So I don't know. So yeah, we were in lockdown. We went home. No big deal. Horrific that it happened. I'm very upset that a deputy sheriff lost his life. I don't think anybody deserves to die. And if you think that this is like a hate crime or anything like, or whatever, the guy was evicted from his home. And so he just crashed out. Like that was just, he snapped. So he got an eviction notice and then went and grabbed his gun and just decided to get violent.
Yeah, the sheriff came to initiate the eviction, which happens in, I mean, as far as I know, like every California county that way. It's that way in Los Angeles. Like if you have an eviction notice or that kind of thing, the sheriff is the one. Even if like your PD doesn't do it, it's the sheriff. So he's just doing his job. I'm sure he thought it was like easy paperwork day, and instead gets shot in the head, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yep. So that was our day. Other than that, as far as things go, things are good. Haven't really been doing too much outside of that. We're talking about possibly going to the Renaissance Fair this weekend. Do you know anything about the Renaissance Fair? You ever been?
No, that's not my jam.
Yeah, it's not my jam either, but like, I don't know. Might be fun to take Reese and see her like look at
Christina's gone with the girls and they seem to like it. I think Timmy and Laura might have taken Sagan too.
I've never been, and so I don't know. Like, there's kind of like this thing where I'm like, is it actually like something that Reese would enjoy? Is it something, or is it just going to be like we get there and we're just like, all right, there's a lot of meth heads here, and just be like, all right, that was a waste of $20 per person. So I don't know. Haven't decided if we're rolling the dice on it yet. We think we're probably going to go to the Springville Rodeo next weekend. Not this weekend, next weekend.
So I think we're going to that.
Nice. What day?
I think.
Are you going Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?
Because Jeff and Maddie and
kiddos are here.
Kids coming into town. I can't remember, man. Yeah, they're gonna be here for like a week.
Nice.
So.
Well, I think we're planning on going on Saturday. So.
Which is the good news. The bad news is we've just found out that Jeff's 100% getting deployed, meaning overseas.
Oof.
And it's not immediate. It's within the next couple of months. He's got, and it's like a 9-month deployment or something. So he's gonna be gone a long time. I don't know if he knows or he just can't say, but he can't say where, even if he does know where he's going to go. But but I did talk to him about it, and the unit seems to think there's a high possibility they're going to like Syria or something. So not going to be happy about that. So anyway, something down the road we'll be praying about for sure. But there's a slim chance that if his unit takes too long to actually get in the deployment rotation, like to where like because his commitment's running up in like 2 years. He's got like 2 years left. If it happens to where, again, this is all kind of fuzzy, but from what I know right now, as of today, it's my understanding that if like he gets deployed and let's say he's got 4 months left and it's going to be a 9-month deployment, then he won't have to go. So, but considering what's going on in the world, I don't think that's likely. And I know, everybody thinks we've got this big military partially because of the size of the budget. Well, it's not going towards troops. So, I mean, we have reservists right now that are involved in the action in the Middle East. So it's a weird thing where we think we have this big army and we have we have a big military, and we have a big bureaucracy for that military, and we have lots of things that we spend money on, but we have like a 1.4 million person army, and I think like a third of that is actually fighting forces. The rest is all bureaucratic, transportation, all the things that you got to do to supply chain, all the things you need in order to put a fighting force into the battlefield and then keep them supplied and healthy and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, again, that's a ways off. I just found out about it this week and I was thinking about it. So yes, they will be here. And yeah, they're talking about going to the Springville Rodeo, which Danique and I are talking about going. So I've never been to a rodeo, period. So
they're fun. They're a good time. Bring your sunscreen. Yeah, it's a couple hours. Like I said, time to kill, whatever. Watch the horses run. Buck.
Drink some liqueurs.
I've never done it at a rodeo, but yeah, you can do that.
I'm sure they serve some kind of beer.
Oh, 100%. A lot of Michelob is what I've seen, but
what?
I said a lot of Michelob is what I've seen.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Probably Michelob Ultra.
I was like, bring cash. I was like, but yeah.
That's non-alcoholic beer, according to Billy Bob Thornton and Landman. Michelob Ultra.
Oh, interesting.
He's a he's a recovering alcoholic.
Oh,
he's
that's
always
right,
drinking
that's right.
Michelob Ultras, and there's a scene where a bartender's giving him. He's like, there's alcohol in there. He's like, he's just, bud. I'm telling you right now, I can drink 7 of those things and be fine. Put that in front of me, and all hell's gonna break loose. Something like that. Yeah. Something very Billy Bob Thornton. It's hilarious. So,
also Clovis Rodeo is the same weekend, but Clovis Rodeo is much more expensive than the Springville Rodeo. So,
yeah, the only thing that's worth going up for that is then heading over to Billy Bob's.
Yeah.
Speaking of, that means your birthday's around the corner. Then
it is around the Clovis Rodeo. You are correct. I don't ever tell anybody when my birthday is. Keep it a secret. Keep it to myself. Which also means that it's Andy's birthday coming up. That's really the important part.
It's what?
It's Andy's birthday coming up.
Yeah, I realized last night I need to get birthdays into my calendar.
I don't know the specific.
I don't think any of my friends give a damn that I don't remember their birthday, but I feel bad about it that I don't remember it's their birthday.
I don't know Andy's specific birth date. I know that it's like really close to mine.
Well, he's like you. He keeps it. If he had his way, he'd keep it tight-lipped until the times where his wife decides to throw him a party or something. Yeah, but that was only once though, wasn't it?
Yeah, we met in his backyard that one time.
Yeah,
that was a surprise party. I didn't know how well that surprise was going to go off. Andy had a good time. Andy listens to this, but Andy, you're a pretty smart guy, so I just feel like I don't know. Nobody's ever done a surprise party for me.
I don't know. Yeah,
I feel like there's like party that's just going to be like
anytime they throw a party, Andy's working on the yard for 2 weeks before it or any event. Yeah. He is working on the backyard for seemingly 2 weeks to get it ready. So, how they pulled off doing a surprise party, if in fact it was a surprise party, that's something to query Trish the next time I see her.
Be like, was he really surprised?
And he's out there looking through the blinds like, why is Rowan doing yard work?
Yeah.
And Trish is, he just decided, he got tired of being yelled at, so he's going to do it. Like, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how my life's going. Yeah, no, I was seeing mine. I'm like, oh, geez.
Looks like miso soup.
Yeah, also this is becoming more work as this goes on. I was like, initially it was good, but this is becoming harder and harder. We're talking about the beer, by the way.
Okay.
I have your trivia. Sorry, gotta pull it up. This is the riveting stuff. This is what podcasting was made for right here. I guess I could stall and talk about other things. I don't know who I'm rooting for in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I gotta be honest. I think I said that earlier.
I don't even know yet. Tomorrow I will know when I go through. I guess they wrapped up who is all in the playoff last night, so
yeah,
I need to look it up so I can
Seattle
start.
should have won to knock the Kings out, but didn't end up happening. Well, I mean, still other things would have had to happen to keep the Kings out, but I think that was the first time we lost to the Kings all year, which is kind of like, man. But hey, we have a chance for a number 1 draft pick. The yeah, I want McDavid to win a cup. I just wish it wasn't in Edmonton, just because I think it's funnier that the Canadian teams still haven't won in like forever. That's so hilarious. Who else? Brady Tkachuk's on Ottawa. I like Brady Tkachuk a lot, even though he's like one of the most hated by the Canadians. Americans like him. Some Americans like him. American women hockey fans don't like him because him and his brother are hockey bros. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were Trumpers, but I don't let my politics get in the way of my sports watching. So yeah, I don't know. I got a buddy of mine who's an Anaheim fan. He's stoked that they're going in. Although we'll see how they do. They got to face McDavid and them. Nolan's a Stars fan. Stars are looking really good, but they got to play the Wild, and the Wild are looking really good. So Tampa looks really good. Who knows? Maybe I'll just root for good hockey. That's what I'll say that I'm rooting for. All right. They are not. No.
Red Wings are not.
Red Wings barely didn't make it. They were making a pretty good run for it, but
and no Flames.
No Flames.
All right, that's my 3 teams. So I'll have to pick somebody.
If you're rooting for the old guy that's still going for it, Sid made it in with the Pens. So
I'll probably root for the Pens and then Edmonton in the West.
I mean, if you want to root for the underdog that turned absolute fucking wagon, or root for the Sabres, holy hell. They went from like worst team in the league last year to...
Yeah, I might root for them. They had a good team back in the early 90s with... Oh, they had a crazy... He was short for a goalie, but he looked like I mean, I'm not joking. He looked like a monkey. He was all limbs. What was the name of that dude? Hasek.
If you want to root for a team that's strong on defense and really they're running out of chances, they're kind of like Edmonton, where Edmonton is all offense. They're like Edmonton, but they're all defense and all technical play and all that kind of stuff. That would be Carolina. So there you go. And that doesn't mean just because they're technical, it doesn't mean that they don't hit hard and do all that. But they play really solid defense all the way around. And they have one of the best power plays in the country, or in the show. All right. So this is our trivia tonight. It has nothing to do with hockey. Sorry, just side tangent while I pulled up our trivia questions for the evening. This has to do with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because the inductees for this year were announced. Shout out to my 2 favorites from the list are Luther Vandross, If This World Were Mine, and Oasis getting inducted into the Rock and Roll
good for
Hall
them.
of Fame. So
maybe they'll get in a fight up on stage when they get to,
yeah,
they'll fight over who gets to accept the actual award, the physical award.
All right, so we'll start off nice and easy. These are all dealing with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm not going to give you the super easy ones. Like there was one on here that was like, which pop superstar known as the King of Pop was inducted twice? So dumb. So anyways,
twice.
Apparently he was inducted twice.
Oh, it's probably for the Jackson 5 and for him solo.
Which actually that's going to be important for a question. So know that. Not the part where he was inducted twice is important. Number 1, where's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame located?
Hello, Cleveland.
That's right, because Cleveland rocks. In what year was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame established? Got any guesses? It's later than you think. But maybe not. Nah, that makes sense.
85.
Ooh, close.
86.
Lower. But no, not 86.
84.
One more.
83.
1983. I'm not going to ask you that question because I mean, unless if you don't know
what year they started building it, because their first class was like 86 or something.
Which famous architect designed the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame building? Do you know? Oh, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I was like, that's a really crazy question to ask. Who were the first group of artists inducted in 1986? So yeah, it must have been So it was established, but they didn't induct anybody until 1986. So the first Hall of Fame was 1986. So do you know anybody off of the first inductees?
Chuck Berry,
Chuck Berry, correct.
James Brown,
James Brown, correct.
Elvis Presley.
Yep.
Is the Rock and Roll? No, it's not. It's not particularly American, is it?
It is not. It doesn't have to be American.
But the Beatles aren't in there. They weren't in there in that first class.
Not
were
in the
they?
first class.
I think there was a.
So you have
All
Chuck
right,
Berry,
so Buddy
Elvis
Holly,
Presley,
said
and
Chuck
James Brown.
Berry. Did I say James Brown?
You did.
I think the first class they went. I think when they first started out, they were going like even if, let's say, Zeppelin qualified, they weren't going to do that. They were going to make sure they got, because otherwise people are going to get screwed. So
yeah,
it's all old. It's all old stuff. So we'll go with Fats Domino.
Fats Domino. Yep.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yes.
Ray Charles.
Yep. You're missing 4.
Fats Domino.
You already said that one.
Oh, Little Richard.
Yep. 3 more.
Robert Johnson.
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Don't hate on me.
Sam Cooke.
Yep. 2 more.
Jimmy Rogers.
No.
Did I say Buddy Holly?
You did not. But yes, Buddy Holly is on the list. You have one last one.
All right. What music fits in all that little group?
If you needed a hint on Buddy Holly, I was just going to say
Beach Boys are too old.
There's a lead singer of a group that looks like this guy. That's what I was going to say for Buddy Holly, because ooh, wee, ooh, I look just like Buddy Holly. That would be Weezer, by the way. No Weezer.
Oh,
question.
love Everly Brothers.
Yep, that is correct. You got all 10. Way to go. Which female artist was the first woman inducted into the Hall of Fame? Do you want to know the year of her inductee?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to say Aretha in 1987.
It is Aretha in 1987. Which band holds the record for the most members inducted at once?
Say that again? So like the biggest year?
No.
The biggest band?
Yeah.
Chicago?
No. Which band holds the record for the most members inducted at once? Think of a big band. Is yours looking like this?
Mm-hmm.
I just close my eyes.
Credence?
Mm-mm. So it has the most members.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to. Parliament.
Yes.
Okay.
They've got the funk.
I was like, all right, I did No to Chicago. That's a pretty hefty band. Like I was on the Genesis. I don't know.
Yeah, so Parliament, which is great. Who is the youngest solo artist ever inducted? And what age was he? It's a hint, it's a male.
It's not Michael Jackson.
It is not Michael Jackson.
Hmm.
I don't think it counts how young he was eventually, like, or at the time. Like, Jackson 5 doesn't count when he got that. He probably got inducted in for Jackson 5 after Michael Jackson got inducted. What do you think?
Yeah.
We'll look that up after, but that would be my guess.
Youngest.
At the time of his induction, he was the youngest person ever. And could you guess the age?
Dear. Prince.
No. It's a good guess.
Damn. And it's a dude.
It is a dude.
Oh, boy. Bruce Springsteen.
Mm-mm.
It's not Neil Diamond.
Not Neil Diamond.
It's not Dr. John.
It's not Dr. John.
It's not Randy Newman.
It's not even Dr. Love.
Certainly ain't Quincy Jones.
Was Randy Newman ever a young man?
Oh, that's a fair question. He's like, he's
Sam
like the
Elliott?
guy who's the manager in The Natural and in Cocoon. Like he was like, even when he was like 32, he looked like he was 60 years old. I can't remember the guy's name.
The manager in The Natural? I don't even remember who that is.
Oh, he's in an episode of Seinfeld too.
I love The Natural.
Now I gotta look at that up. Manager Wilford Brimley. I got it before I looked it up. Wilford Brimley. Oh. Yeah, he always looked old. Boy, it's not Lou Reed. Is it a rapper?
It is not a rapper.
Damn.
I think along the Prince train.
But it's not Michael Jackson.
It's not Michael Jackson.
Oh, Jay-Z?
No, not a rapper.
Oh, yeah, you said not a rapper. Damn. By the way, I'm doing well because I looked up, after the announcement came up the other day, I scanned through
some fun
like
facts.
Who's in it, and I can't remember a lot of them, but it's not Eminem because you said no rap. Damn. Like remember Kraftwerk when we did our top 100, that weird German band, and we were like, I actually like this, although I can't listen to a lot of it. They're in the Hall of Fame. They got in.
The Kraftwerk, yeah,
the Kraftwerk.
They were fine. I was thinking about that one, the one that was just terrible. That was like artistic music the other day, where I was like, what the heck was that even? Or there's like no vocals or whatever, and it was just like somebody like scraping a fork on a plate or something. I don't know. It was weird. Any other guesses?
No, I'm out.
Stevie Wonder.
Oh, damn it.
At the age of 38.
We said this when we did his album, the one or two albums we got through, and the list we didn't finish. I think we both realized, I mean, I grew up on Stevie Wonder.
I did not.
But even by the time I grew up on him, he was just kind of like a household name. You know, he's doing duets with Elton John and kind of stuff like that. He's underappreciated, and then he disappeared. Like I don't know if he just decided not to sing.
Songs in the Key of Life might be one of my favorite albums.
Yeah, so he's
I'm so glad I got to.
He's underappreciated. So I'm hoping in the same way, when Prince died, there will be a large renaissance of Stevie Wonder appreciation, because I feel like he's just kind of, and part of it's because that was black music at the time, and now it's been replaced by hip hop. And so even though I would say a lot of hip hop artists listen to that kind of music because they appreciate music, and two, they're looking for things to sample. I don't know how many kids are actually digesting it, and they should be. So
I love Stevie Wonder. Those are fantastic albums. Which artist has been inducted the most times? Remember what I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Eric Clapton.
That is correct. As a solo artist with the Yardbirds and with Cream.
Yep. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, no, I know this one. So,
which legendary band wasn't inducted until 2006, despite being eligible for years?
AC/DC.
It was not AC/DC.
If you're wondering why I say it that way, it's because that's how Brian Johnson, the lead singer, says it. Because if you listen to the man talk, you cannot at all understand what the hell he's saying. So when he says AC/DC, it's that way. Okay, it's not AC/DC.
I do feel like AC/DC was later, though. I feel like AC/DC definitely happened in my lifetime when they got inducted. Same as Kiss. Remember when Kiss got finally inducted? That was like 2016 or something. 15? I remember listening to Alice
Sex Pistols.
That is correct. The Sex Pistols. I remember listening to
otherwise I would have said Black Sabbath.
Which famous rock band refused to attend their induction ceremony?
I'm going to take a very wild guess because for some reason it just sticks in my mind, but I know it's not correct. Aerosmith.
It is not Aerosmith. It's actually a trick question. It was the Sex Pistols.
Oh,
After all those years of being snubbed, they were like, no, we're not showing up.
That makes sense.
What is the minimum number of years after an artist's first release before they become eligible?
I don't know.
It is 25 years after first release.
Okay.
So that means Stevie Wonder put out his first album when he was 13 and old enough to be inducted at 38. That's crazy.
Let's see. First
Stevie Wonder album age? Or maybe they bent the rules for that? Ooh, this is a good one.
Stevie Wonder's debut album is The Jazz Soul of Little Stevie, released on September 1962 on the Tamla Motown label when he was only 12 years old.
Wow.
It is primarily an instrumental album showcasing his skills on harmonica, keyboard, and drums rather than his singing.
Wow. That's impressive because you could highlight his singing, no problem. Which rapper became one of the first hip-hop artists inducted? Or the first hip-hop artists inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Jay-Z.
It is not Jay-Z. You do know this person. I would even go out on a limb and say that you like this person. Actually, I know you like this person. Can you guess the year? So first,
I'm blanking.
First hip-hop artist, and can you guess the year? I feel like this is way more shocking than the person. Well, think about when you guessed the original. So, like, if the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is going to start doing hip hop, then they're probably going to start with the oldies first, right? Like, that would be just like how when they first started in 1986, they went with old stuff first before they started getting to newer artists.
Oh! It's it's got to be Grandmaster Flash.
It is not Grandmaster Flash.
No?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry if I threw you
It's
off
not
there.
Jay-Z.
It's not Jay-Z.
You're befuddling with you. Actually, you say I should know this.
But is my...
Oh, wait, is it art? Is it? It's not a singular person necessarily.
Yeah, it's not like a person. It
could be a band.
Yeah, it's like a group.
Run DMC.
Yeah, it's Run DMC.
Okay.
Yeah.
The way you phrased it, I thought it was like.
Well, that's what it said. It said which artist. It said artist.
Yeah, I guess
but
that's
Run
how they
is,
use it.
you know, I don't know. But yeah, it's Run DMC, which is great.
My teachers walk through closet fours and
you ready?
2009.
First time a hip hop artist was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And probably the only reason why they were inducted was for their Aerosmith. was for Walk This Way.
No, I think
they had to get their foot in the door.
No. I think for the average, no. I would say 100% Run DMC and the Beastie Boys put rap on the map for
sure.
Not for like white people, for anybody outside like New York City. Like no one outside of New York. I mean, you might have heard like Grandmaster Flash and Sugar Hill Gang. So we knew those little songs, but again, that's East Coast. I remember when I was a freshman in high school, on Fridays, the seniors would be allowed to play. They'd set up like a DJ thing and they could play music.
Nice.
And my recollection is every damn Friday they played Beastie Boys and Run DMC. And so, does their music stand the test of time? No. Partially because, at the time it was kind of, some of the stuff they were talking about was seen as scandalous, but gangster rap came in a couple of years later and just, I think, wiped out people's memory of it. But there wouldn't have been.
Yeah, rap evolved very quickly, and it's still evolving to this day.
I think Run DMC and Beastie Boys, both in their different ways at the same time, popularized a segment of music that most people didn't know about, or if they did, they didn't understand it. And it wasn't like a whole thing where they would digest the whole album and go like, oh, it's more than just the fat dude singing about his friends on Sugar Hill, in Rapper's Delight. So I could see they deserve to be in.
Yeah, I think they deserve to be in, but I just think that, I don't know.
I wonder if the Beastie Boys are in. I would hope they're in.
They're in. I'm pretty sure they are. I'm assuming they are. Last question. Which artist famously performed and is considered one of the most iconic Rock and Roll Hall of Fame performances of all time, While My Guitar Gently Weeps at the Hall of Fame induction and stole the show?
It was Prince. He was the last one. Oh, who was on that stage? There was like 6 guitar players. And then he finished it up. And I think he finished it up because that was for Clapton.
Yeah.
And Clapton has been asked many times who's the greatest guitar player of all time, and he says without blinking, it's Prince. And so if I had to guess, he probably picked that. Said I want him to be. It was the ELO guy, Jeff something, and don't back down, won't back down.
Tom Petty. It
was Tom Petty and him, and I don't remember the other dudes, but I mean, you can go on. It's probably got 20 million views on YouTube, and it's one of those things I watch probably once a year. For some reason, it pops up. See who it was. I think his son played too. Prince, Tom Petty, Steve Winwood, Jeff Lynne. That's what I was trying to think of from ELO. Oh, and Danny Harrison, George Harrison's son. That's who I was thinking George Harrison. I'm like, no, he was dead, but it was his son playing. He was pretty good. So, yeah, and then Prince just comes out there and just embarrasses everybody. But Petty and Lynn and Steve Winwood, I mean, they're all really good guitar. Well, Petty's a really good guitar player, but Lynn and Winwood and Petty were up there because they all kind of have that voice that's similar to Clapton. So it lended itself to that. And then, yeah, Little Man on heels took over.
What are we drinking for a second?
We're going to take a break and we'll drink something for a second. Not Double Jack. We're going to do Double Jack next week. We have not had this one on the show. We've had plenty of field work, but not this one.
This must be for sale at Quality then. Also, speaking for which, Quality has the... I should have bought it to bring this week. They have the Pizza Port Crone Wolf collab.
Oh, okay. An IPA?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's called like the Chill Wolf or something. I don't remember.
Well, I'll have to try that because that's the one had the faction people up in arms.
Yeah, Crone.
Which I didn't. They weren't wrong. I mean, love you, Crone Wolf. Wish you much success, but IPAs aren't on the top of your.
Yeah, it's okay.
Success list. I mean, they're fine. They don't make trash ones like some places do. But
I've had the collab. It's okay. It's not my favorite Pizza Port. I'd drink a Swammy over it, but it was cool. Local. Well, local-ish. It's like saying Tioga Sequoia is local.
I would love to be able to. I wish I lived near a actual Pizza Port location because I bet that's a twofer. I bet they collabed on that, and then Crow and Wolf is ensuring that some seltzers get distributed at Pizza Port locations, where there's food. Because I don't think they make one unless they make them only for the locations. But I don't think they make anything like that.
Pizza Port seltzer.
Okay. Ticket to Anywhere, West Coast IPA, Fieldwork. Fieldwork, I think they've settled into the market. As our friend Brad said, they've maxed out on the number of locations that they're allowed to have under state law.
Brett. Was it Brad or Brett?
Brett, there you go.
Oh.
And I think they're doing, they're making really good beer and very good marketing to go along with it. They always have clever names, but it's not like, there's two hazies out there. You're not going to, I don't know if I should have you drink them or not. It's kind of like punishment. It's a Humble Sea collaboration with Alvarado. Okay, so we're going to continue our Christianese series. Tonight we're just going to do one, and that is fasting, which I think we talked a little bit about last week.
Wait, did you want to talk about your thing first?
Do I?
Again, you said you shouldn't derail. I mean, you don't have to let it derail.
I don't know. How many people you think listen to this are dyed-in-the-wool Trump voters?
I don't think there's a ton, but we know some.
I know. I think we know people who voted for him, but I don't think we know. I don't know. I was going to bring up the cartoon,
the
AI generated thing, which apparently wasn't even he stole something from someone else. Did you know that?
Yeah,
it was something somebody did a year ago.
The guy is vain as fuck. Do I think that he sits there and is just like, I'm gonna have AI generated image of me with America and saving people or whatever. I don't think so. I think he just like stole it off of somebody else and was just like, look, and then was like, and then somebody told him later, they were like, hey, you know, that's depicting you as Jesus, right? And he's like, it is? And then like looked at it and was like, oh, wow, shit. Which, I mean, like, some of you might be like, you're giving him way too much credit there. And I'm like, I don't know. I've known that to happen to lots of people. Like, but also, and this is where it is. The guy's a fucking dumbass on social media. Like,
Yeah, he just yeah.
yeah, he's an asshat. He literally puts anything at all times. Like, he's like, no offense. Well, he's like any boomer that's out there believing anything that's on the internet and just putting it on there. Like, and there's times where Donald Trump has said things where you're just like, dude, are you just reading Facebook for your fucking news? Like, is that what you're getting from that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's all true social, but
yeah. So he took an image that had been posted like within the last year by a MAGA person. Somebody on his team ran it through AI to change it a bit, including the 3 things that are above his head behind him. I don't remember what's in the first picture. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's Tuesday, April 14th, and over the weekend, Trump posted a AI generated picture that shows him as Jesus healing a person in bed with a soldier to the right looking earnestly, and then a woman to his left who I think is a nurse praying. No, there's a nurse, and then there's a woman with her hands together like she's praying. Trump's got like bolts of lightning or light coming out of his hands, like showing he's healing this person. And then on his version, it's not in the original. I don't remember what's in the original one, but in his version, he's got like 2 soldiers above him floating like they're angels. And then there's this strange thing that if you just kind of look at it, it looks like some demonic thing. But if you kind of like look, it's a really bad depiction of the Statue of Liberty with wings and like maybe carrying guns or something. It's clearly the Statue of Liberty because it's got like the spikes coming out of its head. So
yeah,
anyway,
that seems like an AI generated image.
So he amended something else, put it out, immediately pissed off a lot of people, including his own voters. And then on Monday got asked about it and said, I was a doctor. I was being a doctor.
That's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard either. Like, okay.
Yeah, he should have just said,
so
like,
you're impersonating a doctor now? That's also not like, that's not worse.
That's the thing. He's not even a good liar. Just say like, oh, my staff was screwing around with like they were working with Grok and they came up with that. And it was just a funny draft that it got posted inadvertently, and it took us a couple hours to figure out, like, come up with that. At least your supporters will buy that and be like, oh, okay.
Or hear me out and just say that you're a fucking idiot and just be like, oh, I didn't get it. I was like, oh shit, that wasn't what
I agree with you. I think he thought he was like a doctor or something.
I don't think that he thought he was a doctor, but I think that was a shitty thing. I think he thought like he didn't think about what it was. He was just like, oh, I'm saving these people. Like, that's what, and then like later somebody's like, you know, that it depicts you as Jesus, right? And he's like,
oh, okay. 100%. That's like, the case. Because he says, he said it yesterday when he said, well, I thought I was being a doctor because I save people. I've saved thousands. I've saved people's lives every day. So, he does believe that. So anyway, 2 things.
It's really funny when Jon Stewart got a hold of it for the whatever Comedy Central show is called that what is that show called? Do you know?
I think it's what it used to be, Jon Stewart
Tonight or whatever. Because the guy that's getting healed looks just like Jon Stewart.
Oh, he does.
He's like looking at the image and he's like, "Can we zoom in on that guy real quick?" And he's like looking back. It's so funny. I was like, if you don't like Jon Stewart and you don't find him very funny, that's okay. I find
Jon Stewart hilarious.
I find him pretty darn funny.
He wrote a book that's like 75 pages. His first little book. It was right after he left MTV. He might have still been at MTV, and it was just like it was little. I think it was called Pictures or Portraits of Naked People, and it had like Abraham Lincoln, but they'd stripped him down naked.
Yeah,
and it's funny tales, made up, invented tales about famous people.
Oh,
And there's there was a chapter like I laughed so hard reading this thing. I was like, my side hurt for a couple hours. It was this Jewish kid who was friends with like JFK or something when they were kids. And it's just 3 pages of telling Kennedy jokes about how like Ethel Kennedy is like plopped out 3 kids while I'm there. Like it was fantastic.
Well,
Man, and I always felt he was funny. I don't remember, he did like a game show on MTV. He always just seemed very funny. And then even when he was when his show was peak, I didn't agree with all of his politics, but he's still funny. He's funny.
And if I were to sit there and say like, all right, so his politics are, in my opinion, I do think he votes left. If I were to assess what I've seen from him, I think that he votes left and his views are more left aligned, but he makes fun of everybody. Like
he makes fun of everybody.
I was like, some of his funniest stuff was when he was ripping into Biden over the last 4 years. It was hilarious.
Oh, he's made way more principled than a lot of people of either side that are on.
He's kind of like how SNL used to be, where it was just like they'd rip on everybody.
He went up to the Hill like 3 years ago, and like he's made Veterans Affairs and 9/11 family victims a big thing. So
he's mentioned in the Epstein files, by the way.
Is he?
Yeah, he actually he talks about it on the show. He was referenced by Jeffrey Epstein as like, there's an email that's sent out where he's mentioned, and it's like, we should get a comedian for this event, like Jon Stewart.
That's it. John's a pedophile.
And he's like, I'm in the files.
And then he did a really good takedown during the Biden administration. He was hosting like a symposium.
Yeah.
It wasn't a comedy thing. It was a lady from the Pentagon. I think she was the basically CFO or something of the Pentagon. And she was talking about like, she was just kind of like flippant that the Pentagon had just failed like its 27th audit in a row or whatever it is. And he's like, yeah, isn't that a big deal? And she's like, well, no, not really. I mean, it's just an audit. And he's like, yes. And isn't that so we know, like wasn't the typical like left-leaning CNN journalist who just like ask a few questions, go, all right, I'm not going to push, I'm going to move on. Same thing. He was like, no, that seems like a big deal. Like,
yeah.
If and she's like, what? She was trying to say like, well, we know where the money is. We just haven't passed an audit. And he's like, I think those are the same thing. And then he's not doing it in a funny way, but he was very serious in the moment. I'm like, we need more people like that on both the right who aren't so, when you're an interlocutor like that, you cannot be all like right wing, left wing, but you also can't be all team anti the other thing. We need people who are, what we need are people who just hate government and assume everyone's lying to their face.
Yeah, we just need more. I need more.
You're lying to me because you're an elected official, so I'm going to keep pressing you on this.
I need more Simpson. I need more Simpson writers and Jon Stewarts out there in the world, or some occasionally South Park writers. Just less raunchy for me personally. South Park writers, where you're able to view the world a bit more satirically. That's
and not worry about stepping on third rails of politics.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Okay, so this Trump thing. One, if you're still on a Trump, I mean,
I love that it comes in the midst of the feud with the Pope.
Well, that's also inappropriate. It's like the Pope's not tough on crime. Like, what the hell do you think his job is? Like, just stop babbling.
And then Vance got into it and said his piece about the Pope, where he's like, the Pope just needs to worry about affairs of morality or whatever. And I was like, all of what? Like, okay.
I don't.
Well, that's great that you say that, Vance. Did you know that morality is on an individual basis and not based off of the general population? And so therefore, yeah, he's able to have opinions on the Iran war.
It's really easy to answer him. Just say like we respect the Holy Father, we respect his counsel, and like and we will take his advisement. And there's a balance when it comes to crime and punishment, and we're gonna we'll take his views like so many Catholics out there and balance out what we need to do to fight law, for law and order. Like it's why pick a fight with a guy? Well, because everything's personal for Trump. So,
and remember, we did say when the Pope was elected, I do believe he was strategically chosen for political sway in the United States. I do believe that. I do believe there's a politics behind the Catholic Church, behind the selection of the Pope.
They need the church. They need this is where the money is. They need a revival in the church.
Well, but it's not even necessarily they need a revival, but I do believe that there was a thought process behind where a lot of the cabinet, a lot of the cardinals are European, Southern America, or South America, not Southern America, but South America cardinals. And they're sitting there and saying, okay, we need somebody to be effective and Catholicism is westernized. So sure, probably years ago, if Russia had a prominent Catholic culture, they probably would have had a Russian Pope at some point. Or if China was predominantly Catholic, they would have a China Pope, somebody that they felt like could have political sway in the area. And so I do believe that those cardinals view Trump as kind of this outlier where it's like, we need to have somebody who is able to therefore have some sort of say in what's going on in this kind of climate or whatever. And I do think that was part of the selection process. I'm not saying that's the only reason why this guy was chosen, but
it was not the only one because he spent most of his time in South America running churches. So I think he also I think he's
qualified. Like I don't think he's a
no. I know. I'm just saying
I don't think he's a puppet.
A unique person where, to your point, he can speak about America and speak to America. Because I think what
people are saying that the Chicago White Sox are blessed by that guy.
I think what I don't know, maybe might be putting words in your mouth. The Catholic Church has had a problem for most of my life now, where you have politicians, particularly in the Democratic Party, being very openly Catholic when they want to tell you that, and then when it comes to anything morality, it's like, no, I don't believe in. I'm not going to vote on that, which is constantly getting them in trouble with their local bishop or the cardinal and so I think there's a level to your point. I think there's a level of we need to rein in the church a little bit and make it clear to you. If you want to be Catholic, that's fine, but you can't keep having it both ways where you're for this and not for that. You're like you.
But that's so that
you can do that if you're a Protestant.
Well, but okay, but that's the whole like. So remember when we went over that T chart of Christianity or whatever, where we have this like new age liberalism where it's like, okay, now you're having it to where Christians for the longest time had this kind of conflicting values with Catholics and Protestants, where you were talking about, Catholics were aligned with you had these liberals or these people on the left that were associated with Catholicism, and they were doing exactly what you're talking about. But now you're seeing a lot more Protestant leftists, and then now they're claiming moral high ground, where that was something that conservative or rightists used as this moral high ground to sit there and say, these are traditional values held by the church, and therefore this is what it is. But the hard part is actually, as you get closer towards what it is that we talk about on this show, you can see how lots of Christians are switching over to more leftist ideals. I feel like because a lot of what we question on the show does have to do with a lot of conservative values that are held because of church traditional values, but then we find that those church traditional values aren't necessarily founded in biblical scripture. They're founded somewhere else, or they are founded in the Bible, but therefore they're not necessarily important to the overall narrative, that kind of stuff. So like things like abortion, things like homosexual marriage, things like war, that kind of stuff. Okay, right? Like if you were to sit there and read the scripture and take all of the stuff that's within the scripture, then 100% conservatives would be correct. They'd sit there and say, no, war is what's called upon. We should go out and we should wipe everybody out. It's what it says in scripture. Gay marriage should not exist. It's what it says in scripture. Sodom and Gomorrah. I was like, abortion should not exist. I was like, that's talked about in the New Testament, right? Like, let's not even go Old Testament for that one. Let's go New Testament. You know, we look at Ephesus and Ephesians. You know, what do we do about that? And so you can see where conservatives have held, or even the church has held these values for so long because they are scripturally backed or whatever. But now, as we push towards this loving and more caring Jesus, we find that we're open to more of those things. We're open to peace and not war and murdering, or not murdering. Well, I mean, it's murder in its own way, but fighting and conflict. We're open more to homosexuals within our communities, and sitting there and saying that it's more important that you are loved and cared for. I mean, the same way that we feel about, and we feel the same way about, what was my third one? Abortion, where maybe you're like Tim and I, where you're not ready to make the stretch of just sitting there and just being like, yeah, abortion's fine. But that we see a person and we see a young lady that needs help, and we're not necessarily looking at how that's responded to in terms of she needs to keep the baby and therefore we help her raise the baby, so much as maybe she needs therapy. Maybe she got the abortion and we don't sit there and we shun her out. Instead, we sit there and we come around her and help her feel like, you know, she still belongs on this earth, even though she might suffer from guilt over the fact that she's killed something that's been a part of her, you know? And as we shift there, a lot of people are saying that you are now shifting more into that left kind of realm because you are more open to being more caring. I was like, when ideas of welfare become things that are less of a stretch for you, where it's like, no, you know what, if 20 cents of my overall taxes go to give mothers the ability to pay for their kids to have milk or to have vegetables, then by all means, I don't care that 20. I was like, that's something that I want my 20 cents to go to. And that's what we look at with the world. Like, and so when you vote, that's what happens. And so I think that that's where we're at right now, as a conflict of ideas. I think it's going to change eventually, but we do have this kind of traditional versus the shifting to progressive kind of setup within our country. And I think that right now there's kind of this, I do hope that this is kind of this last remaining outpost of this traditional kind of sense of just like, Donald Trump just seems like this traditionalist, and the people that follow him just seem like a traditionalist, where it's like, and that's just so frustrating because I sit there and I'm like,
well, most of you're correct, because most of his supporters are boomers. So
yeah. And it's just like, it's so frustrating. It's where it's like, you can still be, and that's right. Like and this is something that we've talked about on the show, where again, we can't disassociate, or lots of those boomers, or lots of these people that are, you can't disassociate your faith from your politics.
Well, you can see that on the left side of the ledger, particularly in the Catholic Church, not in the Protestant church so much.
Yeah,
in the Catholic Church, in South America in particular, but also in Asia and Africa, there's been a war in the Catholic Church between traditionalism, conservatism, and then what Colton's talking about, progressivism. And that progressivism is manifested by what's called a liberation theology. And basically, I'm being very literal and specific. It is basically taking Marxist theology and then weaving it into the gospel. So it's basically doing exactly the same thing we're sensitive to and we're trying to get rid of, because we're right wingers, so we grew up in right wing part of the country, and just kind of like we're to the right somewhere.
Yeah.
And so but there's this very detrimental part of the Catholic Church that is for liberation theology, which again is basically taking Marxism and politicizing faith and saying Jesus is all about basically he's for the worker and he's against capitalism and the bourgeoisie and all that kind of stuff. And so you've also seen that tank, which is fantastic. And so I appreciate what you're saying where we're moving progressive. I don't think that's unfair. Part of it's just we're still struggling for language. I mean, all of us, like you, me, everyone's trying. And that's the easiest way for people to understand. Like we're moving away from conservative views that have widely held
Well,
the most significant part of Protestantism. But I would also say on the other side, the left is, and so I think hopefully both sides will get to a point where
it's pendulum. But
no, I'm just saying both sides are getting to where your faith is your faith. And that might mean you vote in ways that aren't necessarily informed by your faith, because not everything can be formed by your faith. Like, I don't think really Jesus talks about taxes. So if you want your tax rate to be 60%, then pick it. If you want it to be 15, pick 15, but don't tell me that Jesus is emphatic one way or another about it. So
I do vote. I will say that I do vote with Jesus in the voter's box. And I think that that's up to all of you. I do vote that way. I think it makes up my moral code, my ethical model that I follow.
I think either vote with Jesus in your ballot box or figure out a way, dichotomy, if you will, of separating the two.
Yeah.
But I prefer that because you're not using the Bible and Jesus to justify areas that have nothing to do. You're just like, I'm letting Adam Smith inform me how markets work, and Jesus doesn't have anything to do with it. And so
100%. Well, and I think that
but we need to get away where
if we were to have a debate,
both.
right? Like this one was a hot topic when I was growing up. And so this is why I'll bring it up now, right? Because if we are being 100% honest, should the government have any say-so based off of the Constitution? Should the government have any say-so on homosexual marriage?
No, and up until
the answer is right. Defend it.
I was going to put a caveat in that up until about 1942 or maybe the 30s, it didn't, because now I'm going to get into. I can do a little constitutional law thing for like 5 minutes, but that'll just bore people. But no, it shouldn't. Are you talking about the federal government or any government?
Federal.
Yeah, federal government shouldn't. And that's the delicate part, because the local government is always a balance between trying to maintain order. It's maintaining order, it's maintaining social mores, and that's where it gets sticky. The federal government should have no interest in that at all. It's none of their business. And the argument that the gays made for it, and they're not wrong, was okay, but you have laws on the books regarding contracts, regarding who, like people, spouses and all that kind of stuff. You're not letting me be a spouse, and so that's a problem.
Yeah, you can't let me file my taxes jointly.
That was one thing Brandon Price always said, was like, well, the problem is we made, marriage isn't just marriage. If marriage is just marriage, you could just go out like in Braveheart and just get married out in the forest.
Yeah,
and that was it.
You made it something that's associated with the government.
Well, but it's a legal contract. I mean, it's legal protection. If you're married, your spouse is protected from testifying against you if you murdered somebody or stole money. And
so therefore, I do think that the federal government therefore needs to under the federal government therefore needs to make it state. It does need to then apply to the states, where it is like, okay, if it is something where they're saying that at the federal level, you are recognized for this, then they're like, I don't know, would it not have been, maybe you can push back on this. I was like, if you wish, if a homosexual couple is recognized as being married at the federal level, but they're not recognized as being married under the state level.
Federal law supersede. If federal
Right.
law is in place, then federal law supersedes.
Yeah, so therefore
I think what needed to happen was, I think Christian leaders should have gotten together and said, "Look, this is not what this is bigger than the Bible. This is a legal matter, and we need to allow the government to do whatever if that means that people can get into legal contracts with one another that you don't think." Then, but stop making this some fundamental moral issue of the day. Like, it's not gonna.
You're gonna turn all their kids gay by allowing gays.
Yeah,
to get married.
exactly. So
that was a hot debate when I was growing up. But again, if you hold on to that traditional view, and so all right, so I go into the voters box now. Still, I vote with I'd still probably vote no. Even though I'm well aware that in the country, and I mean, that kind of feels fucked up to say now, but there's something in my heart that's just I don't think that that's what God wants for his people, because again, he wants us to, he has goals and he has ambitions. And I mean, maybe there's still some part of me that's just holding on to this traditional thing that's really difficult to get rid of, to where it's it's still not, I still don't think that that's what God intended. Again, that's what makes it difficult, right? Because the church is something separate from the state.
You're talking about marriage?
Yeah. And so I view marriage as not what the federal government defines it as. I view it as something I do view it as this religious practice, that this is something that is a part that is associated with my faith. And it has now been hijacked to now be used as this federal legal whatever kind of thing, where it's that's not really what it was intended for before. It's what it is now. And even in Jesus's time, it's still associated. It was still associated with the government, right? Mary has to go with Joseph as part of the.
Yeah, there's always been an element to that.
Yeah, there's always an element. Well, I don't know if it's always, but
even if you look in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, there's rules about, if your brother's wife dies, there's,
about property and inheritance and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do think that there is a religious aspect of it. And according to scriptures, if you were to pin me down and sit there and say, is homosexuality a sin? I'd say, I do think it is the definition of sin, where I truly believe it is the definition of sin I don't think it's what God had planned for your life, if that's what you mean. Because sin ultimately means missing the mark of what it means, missing the mark. And so I don't think that that's what God had planned for your life. It doesn't mean that God doesn't still love you. It doesn't mean that shitty things are going to come your way because you're doing sinful acts or whatever. It's not karma or anything like that. I just don't think that it's when God created this whole world or this whole design, that was what he had planned for us but you have free will, and therefore you are able to choose what it is that you want to do with your life. But when he created you, I don't think, and so if you want to ask the question of me right now, if you were to sit there and say, is somebody born homosexual or do they choose to be it? I think that there are a lot of social pressures and norms that, in my personal opinion, I believe that there are social norms, pressures in school, in their upbringing, that force children into circumstances where they feel that they are a homosexual because they are different, because that's what they are called, they are joked about, they are laughed at, or they're just different. And so they're like, well, how do I reconcile with being different? And they're like, well, I check box A, box B, box C, so therefore I must be D. And I've actually heard, and this, listen, this is an anecdotal fallacy, so you're more than welcome to sit there and be like, all right,
well, it's anecdotal, doesn't mean it's a fallacy, but yeah, it's anecdotal for sure.
Yeah, so you can sit there and say, all right, Colton, that doesn't apply. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. But I have heard several
It's
testimonies.
not dispositive, but it's still anecdotal.
I'm sorry. This isn't a research study that I've done extensively.
It's not been a double-blind study that's been peer-reviewed.
If you're like, I could toss this out, but I'd encourage you, if you know somebody who's homosexual, talk with them, especially a male, because males often refer to, they'll be the ones that tell you that their homosexuality started at a young age and that was something for them. Females will often say that it started around their teenage years. They're not often associated with homosexuality until they're in middle school. But for boys, they'll talk about like when they were 4 or 5. They'll be like, oh, I was playing with Barbies. Oh, I liked this girl's clothes or whatever. But notice that it's the actions, right? That would be what they cling on to. Is they'll cling on to, they're like, oh, I wanted to paint my nails.
Social norms.
Exactly. They cling to
they're letting social norms define their
100%.
sexuality.
100%.
Because frankly, their age, a lot of them shouldn't even be worried about sexuality, but because we're 100%. An overly sexualized society and we've over-sexualized schools in order to deal with, not because it's a bunch of perverts, but because we're trying to deal with other issues. But in turn, I think we've over-sexualized school. Then now we have kids who are like, I just want to read comic books and be left alone. Why do I have to answer this question just because Billy over here, it's already got a libido going and mine isn't going yet?
Also, I do think that social norms also dictate heterosexuality as well. I think that is something where it's like, I think that because it is prioritized, there's this idea of you need to be attracted to a woman. I think that I do think that there is a natural inclination towards heterosexuality, but I do think that there are things that promote, and therefore social norms also allow for that to happen as well. So
yeah,
but
also the social Darwinism argument is, it does. It's in order to perpetuate the species. So
yeah, but also Darwinism also explains that there are animals out there that have homosexual tendencies, or actually just bisexual tendencies, because they're just like, I'm trying to reproduce and I don't know what's what. Like, I'm just trying to go find a mate. And so like they just go, and so they'll be known for, coming on to a male but then the next day going after a female or whatever. And it's just because that's part of, I was like, if you've ever seen a female dog hump a male dog, you're just like, how does that even work? Or you've seen a male
talking
dog
about
hump
you,
another
Jojo.
male dog.
My dog does that. Jojo, you little tramp.
Yeah. And again,
she humps tank.
I was like, there's lots of different
10 times her size.
There's lots of different reasons behind that. And it doesn't mean that it's homosexual, but anyways.
It's dominance. In that specific case, it's dominance. Anyway. You know what? I think we're just gonna we're gonna just continue this, and then this is gonna be the episode. We'll do fasting next week because we're already at almost 2 hours. So I don't want to turn this into a 3-hour podcast, partially because it's late for us already. It's interesting if the church is really worried about marriage. Like, if you're really worried about marriage, you're really worried about like biblical marriage. The thing to talk about is that has more of an impact. Well, let me step back. I think you're correct. Where I still hold firm to, I think heterosexuality is the correct way, and I believe it's because God intended it that way. I think he and what he intends ultimately is his world is set up for men and women to get together. Women soften men in their way, and men soften women in their way, and then also to have children. And when I say that, I mean, yes, one, to perpetuate the species, but also anybody who's had kids. I have not actually literally had kids, but even one who's basically adopted stepkids. That's your moment to finally become an adult. Like, once you've got a kid to take care of, it's like, it's now, if you're not an adult now, then you're going to have to learn on the go. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. And, and that's just the way life is. Not everybody doesn't function how they are. And so if you're the church, what I would be more concerned about is the number of heterosexual couples under probably 35. There's a large segment who are not having kids. because they're worried about the economy, they're worried about global warming, like they're worried about all these kind of things, and so they're scared to death to have children. That's something more helpful to talk about. How to do that, I don't know. And that's, that's a sticky wicket. You need to be a really good pastor who's in tune with the Holy Spirit to know what to say and then not be concerned about what you say. Because, I mean, we have single male friends. They don't want to hear sermons about people, married couples or getting married, or it's a difficult thing. It's a tough thing to talk about on a Sunday, telling people they need to have kids, and then those who aren't even married yet and are wanting to get married, let alone, you need to get married and have children. That's what God calls you to do, and here's the reasons why. But this is supposed to be about difficult conversations. If you can stand up there once a month and talk about giving me money, then I think, then have the real difficult conversations that, might make young people in your church, married or unmarried, uncomfortable. But then give them the ability to get together and have a conversation about it and say, my goal isn't to make you feel guilty about it. I'm 45 years old. I'm not. I'll use mine. I'm 53 years old. You're 28. I have no connection to what I understand that dating is different now than it was when I dated. And even when I dated, it was a scary thing. So I'm in no point. I'm not here to judge you as to why, we need to have more of those conversations. But instead, it's easier to pick on the homos because they're an outside thing, and we always, even within the church, we revert to sheeps and goats, us versus them. They're the ones that are causing the problem. If only we didn't have them, we'd have this nice little utopia. It would all be understood. Our kids could be safe out in the streets, blah, 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 blah. Rather than just being like, all right, whatever.
Yep.
Let's figure out a way to, for all those churches that are into the reprogramming therapy, which now that's like 2 decades old, that stuff's bullshit. And it's very, I would say in a lot of cases, it's not biblical. It's just 100% controlling. But somewhere along those lines, all right, if you really believe this, then start preparing. Send your pastor or someone on your staff to university, some kind of school to get training on how to deal with, how to interact with homosexuals. And if you really believe that all these people out there who have been guilted into it, have been duped into being homosexuals, then prepare your staff to handle those folks on a one-on-one basis and say
Yeah.
But don't do open programming, you're feel guilty. We're going to run you through this bullshit. But, as we talked about in the last episode, churches are run like corporations. They're not actually, too many are run by corporations. They're not actually run like ministries.
Well, and so that's where, again, and so when we talk about the voter box, I'm talking about you get in there when it comes to the items of homosexuality, when it comes to any issue of morality. I don't feel like it's wrong for you to sit there and say, what is it that my God wants of me in this situation? And so therefore we make our vote based off of that. I don't think that that's wrong. I think it is wrong when you do what is depicted in this picture and you view Jesus, or you view Trump as this kind of Messiah figure, where it's like, oh man, he's going to save us, and therefore we're going to we have this championship where it's, again, and I brought it up, was it 2 weeks ago? I kind of talked about where, again, you have this, and I'm not, again, I want to stress it enough that I'm not calling Trump the Antichrist that is talked about in Revelation or whatever, that that lots of people are afraid of and whatever. But I am saying that a lot of his actions are Antichrist.
Yes, he is acting more and more like an Antichrist.
Yeah, he is doing actions, performing actions that are anti to what Christ wanted for our lives and wanted for all people. And listen, there are plenty of presidents that have done that, right? I was like, if you want to go down the list, I was like, fucking Obama bombing Syria. Like, that's anti-Christ.
Syria, Libya.
Yeah, that's anti-Christ. That is anti what Christ wanted for our lives. And that's where I would try to stab. I'm not calling them the Antichrist. And of anything, if you want to go back to previous episodes, you know that I really don't care that people called Obama the Antichrist. I was like, that really bothers me. But
His wife is, though.
And we've talked about on the show before that Jimmy Carter was one of the worst presidents of all time because, again, the guy tried to do the job while using his faith with it, and that just didn't work. There are people in our world and in the world that we live in that we have to acknowledge, whether we like it or not, have to sit there and do exactly what you talked about, where you have to disassociate. You have to sit there and say, this is my church, this is the church world that I live in, and then this is what it is. And that's where, when you talked about the Catholics, I was like, that's what they did. Like, that's what the liberal, or it's like,
I would say a good 30, 40%, maybe higher of let's just take Democratic senators in my lifetime are Catholic. That every single one of them voted against their church for abortion. And every single time they'd get called out by their local diocese. It was always a game because their voters would still vote for them because their voters are voting for different things. They're voting for labor rights or whatever. So I said, I want to be clear. I said, I want to give people, I had said, you can either vote the way you think Jesus wants you to vote, or you can kind of disassociate yourself. And then in that case, then you don't drape the Bible and Jesus around it. I just want to be clear, just for transparency. I'm in the Colton camp. Well, I've always voted the way I thought Jesus wanted me to.
Yeah.
But I've had a reckoning with what I think Jesus actually wants. And so therefore how I vote has radically changed the way I vote. And so 20-year-old Tim would have been all in on this war in Iran, buying all the bullshit.
Yeah, God wants justice.
And current Tim does not. Current Tim thinks it's an abomination. And current Tim doesn't like the fact that he finds his country to be a lying, hypocritical country that says things like rule of law, international law, which it created, don't apply to it. Yes, you know what? As a Jesus follower, either you live by the law or you die by the law. And in this case, you can't act like you're some sanctimonious city on a hill, as Reagan called this, and be this beacon of light and morality, and at the same time acting in all of the ways that you claim to detest rogue nations act like. And if that doesn't bother you, then that's fine. But then you're basically, and I mean that's fine. Then what you're saying is the world lives in a Hobbesian Leviathan world where might makes right, and that's it. There's no morals. God's laws don't matter, and where God's law matters is on an individual basis. Again, I can see where you can square that, and I don't even know if it's wrong. I haven't, off the top of my head, nothing of what Jesus said contradicts that. I would say Jesus saying, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and what is mine, or God's God's. That doesn't give you that as, if you're using that as an excuse to be like, government does whatever, and then I do, and then the whole rest, everybody else does that. That's not what that verse is. You're taking that verse way beyond what it means. I think it's a more sound place to be on of, though. I think you're better off voting how you think Jesus wants the world to work, because as we've made clear on the show, whatever your views on the afterlife are, let's not make the afterlife the priority for why we're Jesus followers. And if we're trying to make this world more like Christ's kingdom, the most effective way to do that is reflective in the government that represents us, as long as we're voting for our representatives. And so I think you should do that in the best way you see Jesus actually means. And if you're convicted that Jesus actually means violence is violence, then vote for a government that's a lot less violent, or not violent at all, that learns how to exist with everyone. We don't have to be friends with everyone, but we don't have to be enemies of everyone either. We can be neither friend nor foe. And then all the other various ways that you think that might, again, I don't think Jesus is going to give you a clear indication on what the tax rate should be, but I think you can pray on it. And if you think Jesus is being like, yeah,
I think you'll find that Jesus was okay with you being a slave. Man, if you
that's my biggest thing. That's my biggest problem with the church in America for sure, but I would even say the Western church period, is there's this notion that Jesus, and I even see it with people who I would say theologically are more in line with you and me and have had changes more in line with you and me in the recent years, but they still cling to this thing of somehow
America.
Jesus means freedom.
Yeah.
And I would say that's wrong. Here's what I would say. I would say it's highly unlikely that without the gospel, even in its bastardized form that it took for 1,500 years, I think it's unlikely that freedom, how we understand it, would have come about.
I fully agree.
The freedom that we have in democratic Western countries, whether it be even like when I say that includes Japan and South, blah blah blah. That is a Christ notion. Without that, you would have always existed in a world where there's Caesars and kings and cons and all the other things.
Westernized culture is based, and we've talked about this before, but we haven't talked about it in a long time. It's based around a Christian ethical model.
Correct.
Which is
our society is based on a Christian ethical model, which is also informed by Roman and Greek notions.
But it is built around the idea of trying to depict that there is a sort of kingdom building that does exist within that. So there is this idea of we want all people to be liberated. We want everybody to feel free of their burdens. This idea of free, that people were meant to be free serving under God, which is funny because you still have this submission to an authority, but this authority is also a servant. And so therefore you have this idea that all of us are created equal under God's image. And so therefore we should all be free to do whatever. Nobody has any power. God is the only power. And so you have this that is created from, and I mean, this has taken thousands of years to get to
the
this
notion
point.
of let the little children come to me. I mean, we didn't fully vet that out until late 1800s, early 1900s, when we dealt with child labor laws. That was a full. If you look at the history of that, that was a full manifestation coming out of one of the Christian. Oh, damn it! The revolutions. What do we call those things in the United States?
Enlightenment. No.
Yeah, I keep thinking Enlightenment, but you know what I'm talking about. There's the Great Awakenings.
Awakening. Yeah.
One of the Great Awakenings led to this notion of we can't have children working in slaughterhouses and stuff like that. So literally, this is, even that as late as the late 1800s, early 1900s was a notion that came out of looking at children not as property in these things, but something to be protected, and as Jesus did. Our whole notion of women, Jesus. So, but that does not mean. But then that does not mean then you can take that and say, well, the logical conclusion is then Jesus wants us all to live in freedom. No, that's not what that means. Because if it did, Jesus would have done so in the moment. But he went to the cross in a large part because he refused to overthrow the means of oppression over his people. And so, yes, would Jesus love you? Yes, I think it's great for everybody to live in freedom. I think it's an ideal. But we've turned that into this thing where we literally use it to claim, and I think a lot of times we're claiming, it's bullshit, but we're claiming we're going to go to war in order to free people. And I'm sorry, there's nothing biblical about that. And yes, that means I'm also condemning, and this is not the first time we've talked about on the show. So if you're a longtime listener, you're not new to this. Yes, that means also that I think in the grand scheme of things, the American Revolution was sinful. We chose to kill and overthrow the yoke of a king over taxes. That's literally what we did, over money. And I don't think Jesus thinks that's something worth, that's not part of his kingdom. So that doesn't mean that this wonderful experiment that we're living under is to be condemned and we should revert to something else. I'm just saying, like, again, don't take the revolution and the founding fathers and all like this, some grand moment where God spoke and breathed these wonderful documents that were supposed to then free the world. No. Was it a fantastical moment in human history? Yes. Were some of these men led by God? Yes, I'm sure some of them were. But freedom is not, it's not a goal it's not Jesus's goal. And so therefore we should make it our goal. Or we have to be careful how we make it our goal. Let me put it that way. I'm the last person who wants to. I am as anti-authoritarian as it comes. I left a company because I didn't like answering to middlemen to start my own business. So far be it from me to condemn people who want freedom. I don't like being told to do anything by just about anybody. But
I want to be told what to do for the rest of my life. That's not true. I'm a very independent soul. But as far as a job goes, I'm like, please tell me what to do. I was like, that'll work best for me, actually. Also want to be a team player.
Well, I can be a team player.
Oh, for sure. I wasn't equating that. I was just more of like the whole, like, I do well underneath a coach. I do well underneath a coach giving directions and then being a leader that way. And so I do well that way.
That's interesting. My ideal is, and it's an ideal because it doesn't work very often. My ideal is getting a bunch of adults in the room who know what their jobs are and going out and doing it. So I have to manage them as little as possible.
I want that from my boss. Like, that's what I want. I want them to have confidence in what it is that I'm doing. But I want them to sit there and be like, good, I trust my employees or whatever, but I want them to deal with all the higher up things that are hanging above or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to deal with that shit. They're just things that I just don't want to deal with. And I'm just like, yeah, you're a select individual that doesn't have a problem dealing with all that crap, but trust me as your employee to be able to, that I'm an adult and that I can do what I do best and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, yeah. All that to say,
this is great. We got way afield, and I don't care.
I don't think we got way afield. I really don't, because
I haven't even. Well, go ahead.
Well, I think that where we started with this conversation, where I think that it needs to end, is this idea of there is a certain sect of right-wing conservatism, and I'm going to speak to them, where you have held these traditional views, and I hope that you have been offended by this picture by Trump. And yes, I do think that he's a narcissist, and so he decided to just throw this up there without checking, without looking, because again, that guy talks without thinking. So that checks out for me.
Yeah, he's 100% impulse. He's driven by animus, not by intellect.
Yeah. But if this insulted you, again, I appreciate that. But at the same time, there are things that he is currently doing that should insult you far more than this picture, to where there are things that are far more anti what Christ had vision for this world than this mock image of him depicted as some sort of savior or prophet or Jesus, Messiah, if you will. Again, some people are like, he's depicted as I saw somebody be like, well, he's not really depicted as Jesus. Like, and I was like, okay, whatever.
Was he Merlin? Like, what the hell are we talking about? Come on.
I never. Yeah,
Come on.
Well, you'd be wearing blue robes
Come on.
and a pointed hat. So
it was very clear. Come on.
But I'm saying that I think that, and again, that this is how, and if you are one of those people, and I don't know, like, this is where Tim was like, I don't even know if this is worth having a conversation about, but I do think it is worth having a conversation about, because at least if you're listening to this and you agree with us, you can sit there and feel affirmed and looking at this picture, and maybe you want to have a discussion about it or whatever, or you want to hear two guys have a discussion about it. Have a discussion about it with us. Have a discussion about it with somebody else around you and be like, hey, did you see this picture? Because maybe some of you didn't even see it.
Well, good for you if you didn't see it. I wish I hadn't, but my mom actually texted to me on Sunday. I was like, well, oh, come on. What is this? All right.
She texted you non-satirically. She was like,
oh, I mean, okay, so I'm going to throw you under the bus. Like, she was outraged by it.
Super listener, by the way.
I was like, she was super outraged by it. I'm like, what are you outraged? Like, this is like the 40th text where you're outraged. Like, how deep is your outrage well? Like, I mean, okay, let me be fair.
Super listener, by the way. Shout out to Mrs. Curley. I actually don't know your first name, but shout out to Tim's mom. She's been a super listener since the very beginning. So,
I'm going to be a little fair to people who were really shocked by this, and I'm not going to be fair about like this is the breaking point, because that's what you were talking about before, and I do want to pull on that thread a little bit more before we dip out of here. Yeah. Jesus is like truly the third rail of American culture. I mean, Martin Scorsese found that out the hard way when he did Last Temptation of Christ, and he's a Catholic. He says he's a devout Catholic, and I'm saying that because he says he's a devout Catholic. I think that movie was off in a lot of ways misunderstood, because he's got the whole thing. Anyway, it's not worth going into. I mean, if you don't know what Last Temptation of Christ is, look it up. If anything, that movie shows the reaction of that movie showed like there are still taboos within society that even like the most secular people understand. Like, we're not, unless we want to be like thrown out of polite company, we're not going to make fun of that. Like, if you're making fun of Jesus, you're throwing down with like the Satanists and the just most ardent. I don't know. You're throwing down with the outside. So for Trump to do that, I can still the shock, I understand. At one level, I still understand the shock. Even like I didn't even I thought there were things. I thought he'd pretty much done all the shocking things, but no, there's still shocking things he can do. So from that standpoint, I can still see how people are like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, I didn't think that was going to happen. But to Colton's point, like, I'm sorry if you are listening to this and that was the final straw, I'm going to respectfully ask why there weren't other things that were the last straw. I mean, the week before, he said he was going to obliterate an entire civilization to where they couldn't even rebuild themselves. That's basically, and again, look at.
But I like hyperbole.
No, but see,
but I like hyperbole as much as the next person. But I'm tired of the excuses.
You can't be president of the United States and indulge in that kind of hyperbole.
Yeah, and just be like, oh well, like you can't really take him at that. Like,
particularly when you're at war with a country that you are using their hyperbole as a reason to go to war with.
Yeah,
death to America. I could argue that's pure hyperbole. Does anyone really believe in Iran that America is going to die? No. That's fucking pure hyperbole. But you're literally using that to go to war and telling your country, they tell everyone that they're going to do death to America. And so if they get the nuke, that means they're going to nuke us and wipe them off the earth. So, okay. So if we're going to play that game, then you standing up on Easter weekend and going on Truth Social and saying, I'm going to wipe this, you have 48 hours. I'm going to then wipe you off the face of the earth to where I'm going to end the civilization to where you will never rebuild. I'm sorry. I don't care how pro-American, apple pie, Uncle Sam, salute the flag, Pledge of Allegiance, American you are. That is outside the bounds. Is outside the bounds of humanity, regardless of Jesus. But you can't be a Jesus follower and not be shocked by that.
I agree.
And if it is hyperbole, then you should say, I don't want a president of the United States who engages in that kind of hyperbole, particularly when we're in the middle of a war. I need a president of the United States who is calm, collected, is very selective in the words they use, says less and does more, or does neither, does less and says more. But I don't need someone who's just flying off, posting wild things with his thumbs going crazy, just posting crazy stuff on social media. Like, there are plenty of other reasons to be out on Trump and be like, that was a mistake. He's not the guy I thought he was. He's not. I don't care who he surrounds himself with who claim they're Christians. This is not good for the country. It's not good for the world. And, again, if you disagree with me, that's fine. I don't want this podcast to be fine. You disagree with me and then you don't listen to me anymore, or we're telling you as hosts, go listen somewhere else. This is where we stop breaking bread and we're not going to be friends anymore. So if there's a few people on here who disagree with me. Like Colton said, then this is your moment to send in an email and tell me why, and we can hash it out. And maybe Colton and I haven't thought about something, or we're willing to hear you out and be like, I still disagree, but I have name to a face, or a face to a name, or a name behind an email, and I hear someone who seems like a good person, or a reasonable person making an argument, and so we'll agree to disagree.
Yeah, we will.
But again, like, I don't think this. Yes, I can see the picture that was posted being shocking, even if you hate Trump and like, oh damn, like I didn't expect that. Like, that's just crazy. Because like I said, even within very secular circles, I think there's an understanding of Jesus is sort of untouchable, and I might say I don't believe Jesus. There's a level, the cultural, the non-believer culture in America has a healthy respect for Jesus. I mean, there's probably, I don't know, and the portion that doesn't is 15%, and that's probably, in a lot of cases, that's just shock top trying to get clickbait and that kind of thing, or people to show up at your wildly offensive stand-up comedy routine, or whatever, your death metal music. But that should, if that was the moment that broke you, again, I think you really need to go back and just look at some of the other stuff that
100%
that he's been doing and saying. And I don't expect to have who's our dude from Minnesota, pastor.
Oh, Greg Boyd.
I don't expect to have Greg Boyd. In fact, Greg Boyd would refuse to be president. I don't expect to have Greg Boyd as president. I don't expect to have, I don't know, pick whatever Christian leader. And we even debated on an episode whether or not we should have like a really good, like, I don't know. I struggle with that. Because the world we live in is, I would like the world to be a Christian place, but in a lot of ways, the world is a Hobbesian place of might makes right, and the Leviathan is always taking over, and God doesn't exist, and all that. Like, as much as the world's become very much Christianized, we still live in this Nietzsche Hobbesian world of just pure force wins.
And so,
and I can see a Christian just, getting the country just chewed up and spit out over it. And so
what do we do about that?
so what do we do about that?
And so the answer is we need to focus on what we can control. And so, yeah.
Well, we can.
Well, I talk about the voter box. That's something that you can definitely control. So go in there and vote and how you feel Jesus, God incarnate, wants you to vote as far as the decisions that you feel like will build his kingdom here. And then outside of that, focus on spreading his love and his care in your area and working in the local government and working with the people around you the best way that you can, because that's what you can control and that's what you can do. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, no matter how much I talk into this microphone and how much I bitch and I gripe, Donald Trump's still going to put a blockade around the Strait of Hormuz, and Jeff is still going to have to go and serve as part of the reserves. No matter how much I want to sit there and want to have an influence and effect on all of that, I can't because of this world, this broken world in which we live in. And I like, and if you sit there and you're like, and you continue to view federal politics and you continue to sit there and scream and rattle at your cage or whatever, the less effective I believe you actually are going to be.
Yeah.
And that's actually where I hope that for anybody that's listening to this, I hope that you sit there and you're like, this isn't Tim and I screaming at our cage or whatever. We hope that you're a part of our community, or it's like, yeah, and that's why we always have encouraged you to be a part of the conversation. And I mean, we joke around that nobody's ever been a part of the conversation, but we've had people. I was like, super listener Chris, super listener Andy, super listener Tim's mom, super listener Jeff. You guys have all given input on one thing or another, and therefore that's helped shape or form what it is that we talk about, because we view you as a part of our community and as a part of our Bible study, even if you're just listening or you're only stopping and listen every once in a while. That's good enough. I was like, this has only ever been just Bible study for Tim and I, and we just happen to be recording it and want you to be a part of it. And so, like, that's where we feel like we do a lot of good. And it's why it's something that's been important in my life, and to where, as somebody who now has 2 kids and I've had to step away from a lot of my social world, I've still always made the podcast a priority as something that's always going to happen within my week, because it's something that's important for my faith. It's something that's important for my spiritual health. And it's something that also, again, I feel like I'm a part of a community, which we've talked about the importance of that on this show. And if you haven't hit one of those mini episodes, then maybe it's time that you have. And I think that those are the important things to focus on. And I know it's easy to get wrapped up in all the shit that's going on, but it's kind of like rooting for your favorite sports team. At the end of the day, there's nothing you can do. If you root for the Giants, they're just going to be a shitty franchise. So that's just how it's going to be.
Well, let me add one thing to that, what you just said. I think I would say since Bill Clinton, the right has been looking for a messiah. And in some ways, I would say, if you're really angry at Donald Trump for what he's done the last 2 weeks, both what he said, the crazy prayer message that was said over him over Easter, and then the cartoon. In some ways, the very ardent Christian voter kind of shouldn't be surprised by this, because you've been talking about Trump in this way since 2016. And so I think the other lesson, if you're listening to this, or you have family that are listening to this that you're going to talk to, we need to stop putting our faith in politicians. They are men or women. They are always going to disappoint. They are always going to We need to move away from looking for messianic figures that are going to save the country. Vote for people. Stop looking for perfect candidates. And understand, no one you vote for as president in particular, because that's where we seem to pour most of it into, but even some particular like member of Congress or whatever, they're not going to save the country. Just from a pure, like, I'm just talking as a patriotic thing. That's not how this is going to work. There is no president that's going to save the day. Franklin Delano Roosevelt did not save the country from the Depression. World War II did. And even then, after World War, we didn't fully get through Depression until after World War II. Like, presidents don't generally save things. We like to pretend they do, but it's generally the hard work and the spiritual revolutions that happen within the public that make change. And so I'm telling you right now, I'm not voting anymore. I'm out on all these people. I'm done. Because I just think I'm in a cynical stage. I might change my mind in a couple years, but right now I'm done. Because I just feel like there's no point. If you vote, I completely understand. I know Colton's going to continue to vote. I don't find it stupid or silly to vote. I'm just saying, from my perspective, with all of the stuff that's been happening over the last couple of years, the information that's come out about Epstein, like, I'm just done with it. I think we're run by really bad people. There's a very healthy, unhealthy culture that is thriving in government, and I don't see government fixing it. And so, to Colton's point, vote, don't vote, but don't look that to save the country. You want to do that? Try to start changing hearts and minds in your little group, and then in your little town or your community, and then your town, and then that's how things are going to change. It's from the inside out. But if we keep looking for the outside in, we're always going to be disappointed. Yeah. And in the end, yes, Paul talks about in Romans about how God is implemented by God and blah 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 blah. But that's often taken as like all governments are blessed by God. That's not what that means. And more often than not, demonic forces, to use that term, are running governments. It's the worst of man. It's man run amok. It's man most rebellious to God that are running governments, because again, it's might makes right. It's power, and absolute power corrupts. All the cliches and things you can just bind up into one. And so we should never put our faith in these people. So, vote if you feel like if it's important, it's your civic duty. You're required to as a citizen. I get all those arguments, but don't do it because you think someone's actually going to like save the country or dramatically change the country. That's not how things work.
Yeah.
And focus on what Colton said. Focus on your family and those things that you can control. Well, you can't even really control those, but where you can influence, truly actually influence, and do so really on a slow day-to-day level in ways you don't even understand. But maybe 3 years later, you hear someone say, it really was important that you called me up that day and asked me how I was doing, or we had this conversation, or just whatever. It's those little things in life that we just never know when you're being impactful, and you find out later. Well, most of the time we don't find out we're impactful, but every once in a while you do. That's where to focus. And as long as we continue, when a healthy, a too large percentage of the church, whether it's a very loud 20% or whatever the percentage of the church in the United States, puts its focus on who's president, the Republican Party, is the state of Israel, all these dumb things, we're going to continually be distracted on one hand, focus on things that probably at the end of the day are 99% not part of God's plan and his kingdom, and for sure disappointed one time after another.
Yep.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode of the Go to Hell podcast. Please do let us know if you have any comments, if there's something you'd like us to talk about, or if you disagree with something we've said. sure there's plenty of that. And if you don't like Stevie Wonder, you can go to hell. And if you have never listened to Stevie Wonder, go take a gander. What are the two of it?
Songs of
Life.
Songs in the Key of Life is the best one. But
Yeah.
what's the other one that we really enjoyed?
Go on to Spotify and Apple, and Apple for sure will have it ranked as the two albums listed.
It's the album that has Superstition on
it. It'll blow it will blow your mind. Stevie Wonder is a national treasure. He's underappreciated. If anything, we're gonna start a revival of Stevie Wonder starting on the Go to Hell podcast. That's right.
Is the other one.
Yes.
That's
All
where
right.
you get Higher Ground.
Oh yeah.
People keep on talking.
Which then Red Hot Chili Peppers revitalized about 20 years later with their version of it. All right.